Adam Shifty Schiff runs away crying, gets laughed out of Congress in career-ending move. Poor Adam Shifty Schiff is literally having a nervous breakdown after Congress voted to release the Nunes memo, which most reports say will incriminate high-level FBI and DOJ officials, finding them spying on President Donald Trump. Schiff knows this will make the Democrats, who covered it up, look just as guilty. Well, Shifty Schiff ran away crying from the floor of Congress after suffering an epic failure, trying to salvage his career. The now famous memo is something many misunderstand, thanks to the Democrats' propaganda. Since it is a report written by GOP Representative Devin Nunes, the Democrats, led by Schiff, are alleging it's just an opinion piece, a nothing burger. In fact, it is written by Nunes, only because the information it is reporting is highly classified and can only be looked at by the Gang of Eight who sit on the House Intel Committee. This memo is a result of what Nunes saw in March 2017. Our research indicates that in February and March 2017 Chairman Devin Nunes, a Gang of Eight member, reviewed intelligence reports, most likely presidential daily briefings, that were assembled exclusively for the office of the former president, Barack Obama. That is why he went to the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, EOB, Information Facility to review, reports the conservative Treehouse. Nunes viewed these highly classified documents in a SIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility. The documents are brought to the SIF and cannot be taken out. Adam Schiff is also a member of the Gang of Eight and had the same access to these documents. From these documents, Nunes wrote a memo, summarizing what he viewed. Now, Nunes got permission for Congress to have access to read the memo, and the shocking thing is that only 4 Democrats took the time to read it. Schiff declined. Isn't that strange? After over 100 GOP congressmen read it, they were stunned. Immediately, there were calls from Congress to declassify the memo so the public could read it as soon as possible. So, we have to ask ourselves what is in it that is causing the Democrats to freak out? Congressmen who have viewed it say it's explosive and that it proves the Obama administration weaponized the FBI and DOJ to illegally spy on then-candidate Donald Trump, and this spying continued after Trump took office. At the center of it are FISA warrants, which were illegally obtained using the fake dossier paid for by Hillary Clinton. Okay, so only 4 Democrats read the Nunes memo, and those who have not read it are saying it is just a load of conservative propaganda. Well, if it was nothing, then why are they freaking out? And, why did Adam Schiff try to write his own memo when he has never looked at the classified information Nunes memo is based on? But, there's more. Shifty Schiff actually took his bogus memo and tried to get the House to vote to release it. After Representative Adam Schiff ran to the microphones to decry the lack of GOP support for releasing his minority memo, Congressman Lee Zeldin shares the backstory. Adam Schiff wouldn't even allow the Intelligence Committee to see Schiff's minority memo, yet he was demanding they vote to declassify it, further reports the conservative Treehouse. Zeldin says, how can Adam Schiff present this minority memo when he did not allow the House Intel Committee to read it, before voting on it, to declassify it and publicly release it? I think the American people are pretty smart and can figure out what is going here. And it's fascinating to watch the Democrats on the committee after we meet, run out and go to the cameras, to give their narrative. At no point when they were mentioning they were outraged that we voted to release the memo, did they mention they had a minority memo. He goes on, what we want is for the American people to get the facts, read the memo and let them decide for themselves on this FISA abuse.
All my colleagues who are coming to the House floor tonight, encouraging the President of the United States now to certify the release of this memo to the American public. The American public is a lot smarter than a whole lot of other people give them credit for. Present them with the facts, the truth, and they can form their own independent judgment as to what transpired. That was the first thought that came to my mind when I went to the basement the week before last, the basement of the House Capitol, to read this classified memo of the House Intel Committee. that this memo should be immediately released to the American public so that they have all of the facts. In addition to releasing the memo, I believe it's important to be releasing relevant material sourced in the memo. Now, tonight, the House Intel Committee voted to publicly release this memo to the American public, and at the same time, the House Democrats came to the committee calling for the declassification and public release of their memo. Now, let me add a little bit more context on this memo that the House Democrats came to the floor asking to be released. They did not allow the voting members of the House Intel Committee to read the memo tonight before voting to declassify and publicly release it. Let me repeat that. The House Democrats, led by Ranking Member Adam Schiff, went to the House Intel Committee tonight calling for the public release of their memo, asking for their colleagues to declassify the memo and publicly release it immediately without giving them the opportunity to read it first. I can speak for myself. I haven't read the memo that the House Democrats offered up tonight. I haven't been granted any access to read it. I'm not aware of any other of my colleagues who have been able to read it. I can't even confirm it exists. Now, after the committee meets, it's fascinating to watch the minority members of the House Intel Committee going straight to the cameras, from the hearing room to the cameras, to give their narrative. At no point did they mention whatsoever, when they were saying that they were outraged that the majority members of that committee didn't vote to publicly release it. At no point did they mention that they never gave them the opportunity to read it first. Now, what you don't see at the same time are the majority members of the House Intel Committee racing off to all of those same cameras to give their side of the narrative. The members of that House Intel Committee. What we're asking for is for the American public to get the facts so that they could form the judgment for themselves of this FISA abuse. I, too, applaud the leadership of Mr. Nunes and the House Intel Committee for their work to restore faith with the American people. As a former Army intelligence officer and JAG officer myself, I understand the importance of giving our intelligence agencies the critical tools they need to protect our homeland, assist our troops on the front lines, and surveil our enemies. However, it's critical that we strike a balance between national security and civil liberty to prevent any gross violation of individual liberties under the guise of national security. Congress has the responsibility of ensuring an appropriate balance is struck, and when it is not, the release of information we feel is in the national interest and of public importance must get out. And today, Congress took an important step in making this possible. Americans deserve the truth. To pull the wool over the eyes of the American public insults their intelligence and debases the freedoms and liberties on which our nation was founded. Government transparency and accountability should be neither partisan or divisive. I would urge my colleagues on either side of the aisle, including those who have especially those who would have voted against its release, to evaluate, to reflect upon their position, and come together united in favor of my belief, of our belief, that the American public is a lot smarter than many others give them credit for. Give them the facts, and we have faith that they will be able to form their own independent conclusions. Now it's up to you, Mr. President. I would encourage you to release the memo. I would also encourage you to release relevant materials sourced in it. Americans have the right to know, and if we as their elected representatives fail to stand up for them, who will. The only way forward is to give the American public more information, not less.
We the people will read the Nunes memo. Either it will have facts and outline abuse by the FBI and DOJ, or it won't. The American people are capable of deciding if it reaches the explosive nature that has been reported by those who have read it. From the actions of Shifty Schiff, I think somehow it's going to blow the lid off of the entire bogus Robert Mueller investigation. It was so damning that only 12 hours after FBI Director Christopher Wray read Sunday afternoon, Andy McCabe, the Deputy Director of the FBI under James Comey, resigned. High-level sources confirm he is named in the memo, and he will probably be facing criminal charges. So, Adam Shifty Schiff has been lying to the American people for political purposes, and it's all coming out now.